Everyone, welcome to our Case Academy series here on our special Summer Fridays. Just to let you know, the Career Accelerator in Science and Engineering, or Case Academy, is a physical and also virtual suite of offerings that we offer in partnership with some of our universities for our engineering computer science majors. The Case Academy is meant to enhance current campus offerings from several of our partner universities and institutions with content that's provided by the many companies who make up the NACME Board of Directors. In most of our areas, we combine these workshop presentations on academic excellence, professional development, and technical training. This way, we are ensuring that all NACME scholars are career ready for a competitive workforce of today and for tomorrow. And with that said, I'd like to welcome all of you all here. And today we have special presenters from one of my favorite board companies, GE. And I'm going to we have a great facilitator to present today. They're both going to be here. Some quick housekeeping rules, as you already know, but if you're first time, we would like to require that all cameras be on so that we keep it in a meeting format so that our participants and our presenters can make sure that they feel like they actually have an audience, so they can see you, they can engage you. With that also said, your microphones will be muted. There will be an opportunity later on in the presentation where you can actually come on and ask questions. You can mute and unmute yourself. But for right now, we're going to keep them all locked until we get to that part of the presentation. However, if you do have a question during the course of the presentation, we encourage you to place them in the chat room. And our two presenters will be sure to make sure that they interject and entertain the questions, excuse me. And last but not least, at the end of the presentation, maybe the last 3 or 4 minutes and last 2 minutes, I'll post the link to the survey for you to give us feedback, because feedback and evaluation of our presentation is always important so we can help design more and direct content that you are interested in. So with that said, I am going to turn it over to our wonderful colleagues from GE to allow them to introduce themselves, give themselves a brief bio, and then we'll get off into this very important presentation of personal finance, wealth building, and legacy planning. I love that title. Without further ado, Davinia, I'm going to turn it over to you and get Isaiah in as well.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our segment of personal finance, wealth building, and legacy planning. So if you're here, I'm assuming that you're looking for gems to build wealth or potentially improve your spending habits and eventually become a millionaire. So, I mean, well, that's my goal anyway, but love money and you desire financial freedom, you've come to the right place. So Isaiah and I were super excited to share some of our knowledge and personal experiences that have led to our current financial gains. Yeah, before we kick off the meeting, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. So my name is Davina. I am an alumni of the Florida A&M University with a bachelor's degree in healthcare management. I am originally from Miami, Florida. I am currently in GE Healthcare's COP program aligned to our service business. So I am looking to permanently transition into our healthcare services account manager role, which Isaiah literally just got promoted from. So he'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute, but I will finish this program in December. It's a 2-year program. And yeah, so that's pretty much where I am now.
Hey, I am. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, I'm a bit late there. Technical difficulties.
So I'm going to go back to our opening slide after this. I just skipped to the introductory slide to kill time. So you can go ahead and introduce yourself, Isaiah.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Davina. So yeah, my name is Isaiah Simpson. I am originally from South Florida, currently living in the Philadelphia area. I graduated with a degree in polymer and fiber engineering, which is a subset of materials science engineering at Georgia Tech down in Atlanta. Since then, I've been with GE for the last 6 years. And then just most recently accepted a position as a sales manager for our virtual sales team. So I'm excited to be here with you guys today and talk through, our path along financial literacy, and then hopefully open up for some questions and get some dialogue going. So thanks everybody for having us.
Thank you for that, Isaiah. So I'm gonna go back to our, I don't know how Zoom, okay, there it goes. Can everyone see my screen?
I can see it. I think all participants are muted.
I
So
can see it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha. Alrighty, so I'm gonna open it up with this slide. So looking at this, I'm probably sure that some of you or all of you recognize at least one of these luxury items. So I'm sure some of you or all of you probably desires all or at least one of these luxury items. For me, I know that, you know, I eventually want a G-Wagon or, you know, one of my dream cars, or even like a paddock one day. So if you guys want to eventually afford these things and become a millionaire, then, you know, just be patient. We'll drop some gems on you guys. And we're hoping that you can gain some skills and knowledge that'll help you manage your money more effectively so that you can obtain these responsibly. So I'm going to pass it back to Isaiah.
Yeah. So team, so why we are here talking about financial literacy, right? Especially in minority communities and the African American community, it's incredibly important because as you look at it in general, from a broad view, 58% of Americans have less than $1,000 saved. 78% of US workers are living paycheck to paycheck. And then as you take into account like subsets of Americans, right? People most impacted by these statistics are people of underrepresented minority groups. And so the way to change that narrative and to change, you know, some of the headlines that we see here about the racial wealth gap that exists between Blacks and whites, Americans, our home ownership rates, all of that is based on our level of financial literacy. And so the more we know literally can equate to the more you earn. And so that's why financial literacy for us is the key to rewriting these narratives. And so from here, I'd like to take you through what the usual money cycle looks like. So Davina, if we go to the next slide. Oh, Davina, did you hear me? Can you go to the next slide? Perfect. Great. So the usual money cycle, right? So we associate it with an exchange of time for money, right? So it's either you're working at a job, so you have your internship or a full-time job, you're getting your income from there. Sometimes if you're still in school and you get a tax refund after your loans, if you're working a campus job, right? So that's all coming into this top side of the funnel is your income. And usually we're spending it all, right? Without being aware of what it's going to or why it's going there and how to maybe be better at it. And so when I was in school, I was spending it on, you know, nice clothes, going out with friends, constantly eating out. Even today, right? Like if I were to show you a snapshot of my budget, I would say that eating out is probably much higher than it should be, right? And not that that's bad, but what we do want to be is aware of where we are spending it. And so if you continue to go through this usual money cycle of everything that comes in goes out, that's a recipe for disaster. And so I'm not sure if you saw our quote at the beginning of the presentation, but it states that if you're not intentionally trying to get wealthy, you'll likely end up accidentally poor. And if you continue down this usual money cycle path of what goes in comes out, you know, that's the path that you're headed. So today we'll want to reframe that, and Davina and I will talk through some core principles that we feel set you up for success and help you increase your financial literacy. So with that, I'll pass it back over to you, Davina, to talk through the core principles.
Thank you so much, Isaiah. So, yeah, we're going to go through a few pillars or core principles that will eventually take you to financial freedom, starting with mindset. And then we're going to go into budgeting, and then how you eliminate debt, and then transition into saving, and then eventually investing to make your money work for you. So we're going to kick it off with money mindset. So before we can get into all of the other core principles, budgeting, saving, investing, I think that it's super important to understand what your attitude is towards money, and to essentially understand the things that you value and what shapes your perception when you're making purchases. So I know that a lot of us desire to be rich or wealthy, but we don't fully understand what is driving our day-to-day decisions when we're spending, saving, and ultimately handling money. So just by definition, money mindset is a unique set of beliefs in your attitude towards money. So for me, I find that most individuals who typically have healthy mindsets towards money have the flexibility and cash on hand to spend, but they also have an abundance of control when it comes to spending their money and saying no when it's time to make an unnecessary purchase. So a lot of this comes from being able to differentiate wants from needs, which I'll get into that in a few more slides. But ultimately, you have to ask yourself, what do you value prior to setting your goals? And do you want a standard life that reflects wealth symbols such as peace, time, financial freedom, similar to the family on the right? Or do you want the American dream where you're, taking vacations, you have a nice home, beautiful family, living within your means, but also living an abundant and fulfilling life? Or you can want to live like the Kardashians, like in the photo, who value status symbols like luxury cars or lavish vacations in Malibu, the watches, the cars, the lifestyle. And, ultimately, my goal is to help you guys understand that it's okay to live either of these lives, but, you have to obtain them responsibly. So me personally, being from Miami, I want to live like the Kardashians, but is this realistic for my income? So taking the Kardashian route just might kind of detour you from your money goals, or make your financial freedom journey just a little bit longer. So like I said, understand that both of these lifestyles are achievable, but it's all about perception. So set your budget for your life and understand that it's not a cookie cutter approach, and you can align your budget to your goals. So again, we want to obtain these responsibly. So I'm going to go ahead and run through these pillars. So first and foremost, you want to forgive yourself. So don't hold yourself hostage for financial mistakes that you've made. So if you're in debt, just pretty much create a plan to minimize it. We've all been there. Acknowledge your mistakes and move forward. So you're not a prisoner of your credit score or your, financial mistakes. So the beautiful thing about life is that we can ultimately wake up any day and just decide we want to be better. And then number two, understanding your money mindset. So what do you value? What drives you every day? Is it your family? Just wanting to have nice things. I just think that this is super important because ultimately, these are the things that will drive your short and long-term goals and variable expenses. So you want to optimize a budget for your happiness. So we're not trying to keep up with the Joneses or the Kardashians. You want to live for yourself. So ask yourself, what makes me happy? And those are the things that you're going to focus on. So, and then create and maintain good habits. So most importantly, do not compare yourself to others. Timing and season is everything. I think that this is like the most important one. You know, you may be in a space where, you know, you have friends around you who are making more money or already have their dream job, or, you know, it just may look really good from the outside looking in. And, you know, your friend may have triple your income right now. And a lot of times we don't know, you know, on the back end, what people are sacrificing to achieve their goals. So my advice is to wait your turn. So maybe you'll get your Benz or your dream car in 2025, and that's okay. So a Benz in 2025 will still be a Benz. And then last but not least, practicing gratitude. So a lot of times we're constantly setting new goals and looking to the future, and we forget that, you know, the things that we wanted um, are right in front of us, or the things that we prayed for is, like, you know, happening at the present moment. So be grateful, and with hard work over time, you will eventually live a more abundant life. So take your time with your goals in your life, and, you know, give yourself grace, and you will eventually get to that goal. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so budgeting. Um, I can't even see the chat, so I was gonna ask how many of you guys have an actual budget mapped out for your financial plans, or just like for a defined period of time. I can't see the chat, but um the goal for budgeting is simply to understand where your money is being allocated. So doing so is super important to establish financial goals, starting with short-term versus long-term goals. So for example, a short-term goal for you may be, you know, buying a car or furnishing your apartment, taking a vacation, um, simply being debt-free, or meeting with your financial advisor. Those are short, attainable goals. And then you will have your long-term goals, large purchases or purchases that may take a longer period of time, such as buying a house, starting a business, or starting a family. So, you know, come up with a plan and figure out, like, what are some of your short versus long-term goals. I mean, ultimately, the purpose is to be in control over where your dollars are going. So, um, and moving forward, you know, creating a money plan. Let me move forward. So this is pretty much a depiction of a simple college student budget for a money plan. So I wanted it to be like as simplified as possible. I know a lot of you guys are still in school, so um, majority of you are going to get ready to start a new career, or you know, you are just pretty much ramping up to start your financial freedom journey. So you can make something very similar to this, and you can tailor it to your liking. So everyone's money plan will look a little bit different, of course, but ideally you will have some costs, some variable and fixed expenses and cash flows, um, and you pretty much will write everything down in buckets. And by allocating all of these expenses, you should be able to figure out exactly where your money's going and how much you're keeping, and how you can tailor that to your short and long-term goals moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Isaiah.
Great. Well, so as you guys are formulating and getting an understanding of how you view money, and then also putting together a plan of attack for your money, right? So that's your actual budget. There's a couple of things to keep in mind, right? And so the great news is that, you know, as an engineer, right, your national average salary is something that should excite you, right? So that's a positive thing. And a lot of times for people coming out of school, you go from a mindset of scarcity to having abundance in terms of money, right? So now we're eating ramen noodles, or, you know, not trying to manage our laundry tokens or things like that. And then you start making money, And all of a sudden, you think you have a lot. But what you'll see is after taxes and things like that, a lot doesn't go a long way. And so you want to be smart about it, right? And so the key pillar of financial literacy, and what I want to make sure that you guys keep in mind for your money plans, is you're always looking for ways to identify, to increase and diversify your income, right? So that's one side of the equation. So how can we increase our income? The other half of the equation is to live below your means. So just because you can afford something, you have to check to say, is it something that you need or want, or where does this fit into your plan? So a couple of practical steps that I always recommend people to start doing and looking at is building an emergency savings fund, right, based on your needs and your current life situation. At the moment, right, I always have at least 6 months of cash on hand. Coming out of the pandemic, I'm sure everybody's heard the stories of people getting laid off, and not knowing, where their next rent check was going to come from or how they were going to be able to provide for their family. Having that emergency fund allows you to have the cash on hand to get through times like that. And the other piece I would say is, as soon as you guys get out of school, and you're starting your new job, there's going to be a lot of things that are coming at you fast. But one I want to make sure that you guys are taking advantage of is your employer benefits, right? So a lot of the times, employers will have these incentives for you guys to use your money wisely, via these retirement vehicles and savings accounts. So we could talk about those a little bit later as well, and even in the Q&A. Things to avoid, right? I think the first one is lifestyle creep. So again, it's that going from the, hey, I was okay with a Toyota Camry, but now because of my salary or position, I feel like I should live here or have this car because all of my peers do, right? That's another quick way to deviate from your plan and what your goals are. The other piece that I'll highlight is investing without understanding. So crypto is huge, right? This year, and back in 2017, I was heavily involved in it. And I'm sure as engineers, right, all of that stuff is incredibly exciting to you. And I would never discourage anyone from going down those paths. Again, it's just making sure that you have an understanding of what you're doing before you go in and risk any of your dollars, because you're working hard for them. So those are just a few practical steps that I'd encourage everybody to keep in mind, as you're building out your money plan. So Davina, if we go to the next slide, we'll touch on the next pillar of a core principle, for financial literacy, and that's eliminating debt, right? And so debt has a negative connotation, but for one reason or another, most of us have it in our lives, right? And whether it's because of school or a significant life purchase, like a house or things like that, not all debt is bad, right? What is bad is not understanding your debt. So I always encourage people to understand your debt obligations, understand why you're taking out a loan, and then what's your plan, right? So a lot of financial literacy is based on understanding and having a plan and then executing. And you'll see that theme throughout this, right? So when we talk about eliminating debt and understanding it, right? So the most common ones that we have are credit cards, your student loans, if you have a mortgage, things like that, right? And so some things you want to make sure you understand is, what's your minimum payment? What's your interest rate? If you're only to make that minimum payment, how long is that going to take you to pay off? How much interest are you incurring, right? If you're coming out of school, do you have a grace period on your loans? Are you in a deferment period, right? Like, how is government policy, right? Joe Biden's passing a lot of things. How is that impacting your loans, right? So those are all things that you want to keep in mind. And then again, choose a method to attack it, right? So there's a couple of methods that I think are pretty mainstream, right? Which is like the avalanche method, as well as the snowball method. So those are two methods of just approaching debt payment. And so what happens is that the one that I chose to use for example, is the Avalanche, right? And so that strategy is paying off your debt starting with the highest interest rate, right? So that's the one that will negatively compound against you the most, right? So start there. So that's going to be your credit cards with like your 22% interest rates. You don't want to carry a balance on that. Make sure you're killing those off, right? And then work your way down, right? So if you have private loans in 11% all the way down to like your government loans, which could be in like a 4 to 5% range, right? So again, that's just one method that I found very helpful for me to do and made sense for me. But again, you guys can take the time to understand it, do your research, and then choose a plan. And if you guys want to use the chat, I know that while we're presenting, we may not be able to see it, but we can definitely go back through it. So if you guys have questions as we get to the end of presentation, we can either take them then, or while Davina is speaking or I'm speaking, we can just be checking the chat and monitoring it. So just wanted to make sure I threw that out there. So that's eliminating debt. Davina, do you want to go to the savings slide now? Perfect, thank you. So the next pillar is saving, right? And so if you're following this, right, we've developed our view of money. We've created a budget. We've started to understand where debt fits into that plan. We're trying to reduce it as much as possible. And now, we realize that, hey, we have this little bit of extra money at the end of each month after I've factored in all of my expenses and everything. What do I do with it, right? And so I talked about it a little bit later, right? So, a little bit earlier, which was creating an emergency fund, right? Saving for that. So that's one means of doing it. But in essence, what I want to make sure to highlight here is to save and bank wisely, right? And so we want to make it automatic. So if there's a way that you can, coming out of your paycheck, you just send it to a savings account and not even see it there, right? Because the temptation, once you see it and you have it, is to spend it. So if you make it automatic, out of sight, out of mind, and then set those targets, right? So if you have, 6 months, 12 months, 2 months, whatever that is, if you're saving for a specific life event, you want to go on a trip with your friends, right? Set that goal and stick to it, right? And then the piece about banking wisely, right, is I'm sure you guys have seen like the articles about or the Instagram post about, hey, if you have your money in a regular bank account, you're making a penny a month or something like that, right? But you want to figure out a way to still have cash on hand responsibly, but get more than a penny a month, right? There are these vehicles out there like high yield savings accounts that'll offer you a little bit more to keep your money in cash. So there's a couple of examples here. The high yield savings account that I mentioned, there's some certificates of deposits, your HSA, which is part of your employer benefits. So all different ways to incorporate savings into your money habits and into your game plan. So that's in essence saving, right? So we want to make sure that any excess at the end of the month, we still have a plan for that so that we're just not throwing it away. So then, Davina, we'll go to the next slide. And so this is kind of one of the last pillars of financial literacy, right? And that is, how do you optimize your income, right? And so I talked about it a little bit earlier in terms of a key lesson in financial literacy, right? The left side of the equation, or the first part of it, which is to identify ways to increase your income. So one of the ways you guys can do that is by getting your side hustles, or working an extra job, or doing freelance work, all that kind of stuff. Another way that is a little bit more passive, right, which doesn't involve a lot of heavy lifting, is investing, right? And it can be as simple as you want it to be, or it could be as complex as you want it to be, just depending on your appetite, right? The key is that it has to be, and it is critical that you have this as a part of your money plan, right? So put your money to work for you, right? And so a couple of things to highlight again is to make it automatic, right? if you can get your paycheck in and then it goes into your investment account, and there's several types of them, do that, right? Again, out of sight, out of mind. The second piece is to think long-term first, right? So everybody is always posting about how they, made crazy amounts of money on Dogecoin or did this incredible thing. And those are a lot of short-term things that, hey, great, that works. But that takes a lot of luck, skill, and education. But the long-term is incredibly simple and is incredibly lucrative over a long period of time, right? So think about the long game when you're investing. So think about your retirement contributions, right? That's so your 401k and your employee sponsored programs. If you guys are aware of those, we can get into details about it if you guys have specific questions, but think that piece first, right? Your buy and hold. So buying solid companies in the stock market. And then as you guys get more sophisticated and you feel like you want to learn more, right, then you can look into diversification, right? So there's a couple of different asset classes that you can look into. So you could just look at stocks and different equities. You could be in cryptocurrencies, right? You can branch out into real estate, start investing with your friends in small businesses or start one yourself. All the ways of diversifying your means of investing. And then I know one question a lot of people ask is, hey, like, when should I be investing? And so I really liked this graphic on the right hand side that I found on an Instagram page run by the Black Wealth Renaissance, which is an Instagram page that's focused on, again, increasing the financial acumen within the Black community. And so you can see here, right, like if you don't know anything about investing, right, start studying. If you still are not at a place where you understand that your money's going to, and you have a lot of commitments and you're still living paycheck to paycheck, right, start saving. But if you're not, and you feel like there's that excess bit of money after you've saved your 6 months of emergency fund, you're paying down your debt, right, now's the time, if you feel comfortable, to start investing. And what I will say, right, which is the last point on this slide, is the when is more important than the how much, right? Because the next question that you get after, hey, should I be investing or when should I be investing? The next thing is like, how much do I need to invest, right? And that's the wrong question, right? The question is just to start. And in the next slide, I'll give you an example, right, of why the when is more powerful than the how much. So Davina, if we go to the next slide. So we talked in the beginning about, hey, who wants to become a millionaire, right? And I'm sure everybody has that dream of doing so. I'm sure you guys have even thought of an age that you would like to do it by. And that's great, right? That's all part of your plan. And now it's about figuring out how to do it. But I wanted to illustrate one of the easiest ways to become a millionaire. And that's through the eighth wonder of the world, which is compound interest. And this is probably one of the only scenarios in life where time is on your side, right? We're always racing against time and trying to outlive time and trying to beat it. But in investing, it is your best friend. And so in this example here, right, you have two friends. One starts at 25 years old. The next one says, hey, you know what? I'm still young. I want to be wild. I want to be free. I want to travel, post everything to Instagram. I want to, go out and party. I want to have the fancy cars. So they don't start saving and investing until 10 years later, right? That friend who starts 10 years later, they save twice as much as you, but just due to the nature of compounding interest, you starting at 25 means you end up with more money than that person who started later than you, even if you stop contributing, right? And this is based on you contributing to these low cost index funds or low cost investing that returns conservative percentages on an annual basis. So that's just, again, an example of why the when is more important than how much. Um, so I'll stop there and I'll turn it back over to Davina to kind of run through a couple of calls to action.
Thank you so much, Isaiah. So, yeah, so that was the end of our core principles. So you guys should start your financial freedom journey today. So a couple call to action items. Understand your mindset and, just kind of understand where your attitude towards money is coming from. What do you value on a day to day? And just, write that down so that you can start working on your financial goals. So that takes me to number 2, establishing financial goals. Write down your goals, short term versus long term, so that you can start a money plan and understand where your money is going. So again, create your money plan that aligns with your happiness. No money plan is going to be the same as the next. So do what makes you happy and live within your means, and tailor that to your principles and core values. And then tackle your debt. So pay off all of your student loans, your credit cards, any debt that you have, pay it down. And then start an emergency fund. So open a savings account and make sure you have at least 6 months of your expenses saved up, and then put your money to work. So invest, and it's pretty much a cycle. So you're going to invest, make more money, and just kind of do it all over again. Invest your money, and eventually you will have enough money to obtain all of the things that you value, whether it's vacation, that fancy car, or just simply being able to provide for your family. So yeah, investing is super important. So going to go to the next slide. Isaiah and I, we put together a page full of resources for you all. I know that you guys are probably on social media, or you read books, or you're into apps. So here are a few resources that could help you while you're on your financial freedom journey. So Rich Dad Poor Dad, that was one of the ones that I read. It's a really good book. And then these are some apps or websites that could help you manage your money more efficiently. And then if you're on social media, these are a few podcasts that pretty much drops really great gems on you on a day-to-day basis on investing, the stock market, buying real estate, just all type of different ways to invest. And I think that is super helpful. So if you have Instagram, Facebook, look into these social media podcasts and platforms. And that is the end of our presentation. So thank you all for coming, and we're going to pretty much open up the floor for questions, comments. We're open to all feedback.
Hi, my name is Louis Cortazar. I'm a 5th year mechanical engineering student at CCNY. And I had a question. This more so has to do with the, with the taxes / file management part of, money management. I currently am working in co-op, and I also have other forms of income in the form of my side gig, where I buy and sell things. I am a dependent under my parents. What exactly is the best way to file those taxes is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so you're gonna want to consult like a CFP. That would be my opinion, right? So Davina and I are not certified financial planners or CPAs, so I can't give out like tax advice or anything like that. So I would consult someone with a CFP or a CFA, CPA. They would be the best to help you navigate the taxes, and make sure that you're doing it responsibly so that the IRS doesn't come knocking. So
yeah, that's the biggest problem everyone has.
Yep.
It's the IRS.
Yep. No, but good question, Lisa. What other questions are out there?
Hi, I have a question. So I put it in the chat, but I was wondering if there's gonna be like a workshop of how to even start like investing in stocks. I feel like that's something that I'm not sure like where to even start getting information on. So yeah, I was just wondering that.
Yeah, is there an admin that might be able to talk through like what may be next in terms of sessions for you guys?
Kevin should be on, but I don't believe he's currently at his mic right now. But on the meantime, there's another question by Brianna Rudolph.
Yes, I know that you said that an option for saving is in high yield savings account, but I know right now I tried to look into them, but the rates are really, really low, like 0.01%, 0.01%, which is like the average for every savings account there is. And like it used to be over 1%, but now in this economy right now, the high yield savings accounts are very low. So I was trying to ask, like, what was an alternative for those right now?
Yeah, Brianna, no, good question. Let me ask you this. Do you know why the rates are so low?
I don't know actually.
Okay, no, that's fair. Yeah, I'll challenge you to look up, just do some research on why it is so low right now. But what I would say to answer your question is, it depends on what your goals are, Brianna, right? So, what are you looking for the high yield savings account to do, right? So, if your alternative is saying, hey, I wanted a little bit more than just holding it in my bank account, right? Even at that 0.0, I think I saw Amex today was at 0.4%, right? That's still higher than my bank account, right? But if you're saying, hey, I want to be in cash and I want to see 6%, 7%, right? That's not what a high yield savings account is for, right? So now it goes back to what's your goal, and then we can figure out the vehicle to use the money for.
I think investing might be my more better option because it's like I have a lot of money just sitting and it's not growing to the way that I want it to. So I saw a slide that had like where you're investing at a time and then you at a certain age it reaches a certain amount of money. And so I feel like investing would be a better option except for the savings account.
Yeah, right. So 100% agree with you, right? So if you're looking at a high yield savings account, right, that's not an investment. That is to say, that's to say, hey, look, I need this cash for something, right? So let's say that for me, right, like I'm getting married in October, right? It's a massive expense, honeymoons, everything, right? Travel. And so I need cash on hand to pay my vendors, to pay things like that. So I don't want to subject it to the market that could fluctuate, right? So yeah, great. I could be up 10%, for in 6 months, but like something could happen tomorrow in a geopolitical landscape and my money could crash and then I don't have anything to pay my vendors with. So by having it in a high yield savings account, I'm getting a little bit more than I would normally do, but I have access to it and it's not gonna go anywhere. I don't have to worry about a fluctuation, right? And so that's why I'm saying, right, understanding your goal, what your purpose, your reason, and then we'll match it to the vehicle. So it sounds like for you, growth is what you're wanting. Yeah, you've got to go find the investment vehicle to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. So I see another one in the chat. Angelica, do you want to come off mute and ask the question if you can?
Yeah, sure. So my question was, when investing, how can you ensure that your investments are secure? So I've heard things about like people sometimes thinking like they're holding your money and they're not. So just making sure that your investments are secure, something like that. How can you ensure that?
Yeah, so a couple of things that I hit on. The first, and Davina, if you have any thoughts as well, like I'd love you could chime in as well. I feel like I'm talking too much. But so the first is investing involves risk, right? So just like I was just sharing with Brianna, right, is that if I put my money into a market, the market now has control of it until I take it out. So it could drop, it could rise, it could go anywhere, right? If you guys were around for like the financial crisis in 2008 or following the news cycle around COVID, right? Like there were significant drops in the market, right? So from that perspective, risk will always be involved with investing. Now it becomes, how do we manage that risk or mitigate it, right? So when you're talking about secure, there's a couple of different ways that I'm understanding it, and hopefully I hit on it. But from managing your risk, right, it's about, okay, only investing what you can afford, you don't need right away, right? So especially if you're thinking long-term first, when you're investing, you should say, hey, look, I don't need this for the next 10 years, 15 years. If that money never comes back to me, I'm okay, right? Like that's the method you have to think about your long-term investing with, right? Because it will go through these volatile times. Now you manage that risk by increasing your financial literacy, by understanding what it is that you're investing in and why you're investing it in that. Right? That'll be another way so that you understand, hey, okay, I expect this to come down. I expect this to go this way versus, wow, I didn't know what I was doing. I've lost all my money, or I don't know why this went all the way up. What should I do with it now? Right? That's another way to mitigate your risk, is to have an education and understanding of what it is you're investing in. The other piece that I hear a lot about is the concept of, do you need a financial advisor? So before I go down that path, Angelica, did I answer like your question, or was there another piece of it that you wanted to make sure we hit on?
I think you answered the gist of it, but I think like the other piece was like knowing where to invest and just like who to listen to when it comes to like investing, and ensuring that if that person is, or if that company is saying that they're an investment, that they're legitimate or something like that. So just trying to make sure that things are secure and going to the right places.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's tough, right? Like there are so many sources out there. There's so many people that are will tell you what to do with your money, all the way from like financial advisors, all the way down to, you have Davina and I here talking about financial literacy. That's why it is your money, right? At the end of the day, Angelica, you earned it. And that's why it's up to your plan. So when you start investing, again, I go back to like, just understand what it is that you're doing and what your goals are, right? Don't make it overcomplicated, right? If someone says you need a financial advisor, I would challenge why you would need them at this specific time in your life.
Isaiah, are you there?
Okay. Yeah, it looks like he actually got cut off.
You probably will log back on. But honestly, guys, I've been like kind of in the background because Isaiah is the investing guru. I'm not like that far developed and along. I'm literally just starting to invest my money. So I can tell you more about things like, you know, an HSA account and things like that, a health savings account. I mean, my dad has cancer, so I know a lot about those type of investments. But if you're wondering why I'm so quiet, that is why Isaiah teaches me a lot. He knows a lot about investing. He has a lot of money in the stock market. So he will be your go-to. But anything else I can answer for you guys.
We've got time for maybe 1 to 2 more questions before we have to end the presentation today. Anyone have any additional questions while we're waiting for Isaiah to come back?
Isaiah's back, and someone said, can you speak on Roth IRAs? I know he knows a lot about that.
Oh, sorry. Did I get dropped off? I was
You
just
did.
flowing. Oh,
You did.
I was talking to myself then. Sorry about that.
Well,
Angelica, hopefully I answered that question. So So the question was on Roth IRAs or where to find more information on them. Yeah, so Investopedia, that website that we showed on our presentation, that's a great website. Vanguard is another great site, right? One of these long-standing investment firms with great information. A Roth IRA is just it's another account type for retirement. And the only way it differs is just based on the way you're taxed on the money that's in there. So I don't want to get too deep in there unless there's like something that's specific. But yeah, Roth IRA is a type of a retirement account that you can invest in different means. So.
Did we drop him again? He's back on
No,
mute.
I'm still here. I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah, I thank you, Kevin. Yeah, I'm still here. So hopefully that answered that question for someone who asked about Roth IRA. So yeah, retirement account, and then I would check out Investopedia and Roth IRA and Vanguard for more information.
All right. Any additional questions? In the meanwhile, I'm going to place a copy of the survey link for those to begin completing the survey for the end of the webinar to complete that today. If they can, I'll place it in the chat.
I got a question. My name's Sebastian. I'm from the University of Texas at San Antonio, and I'm a junior studying civil engineering. What would you say is the most common mistake for new graduates from university?
Oh, Davina, what would you say? You're closer to it.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So what would you say would be the most common mistake or mistakes made by new graduates?
Oh, the most common. I would say from a financial standpoint,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, I'm going to speak for myself. As a new graduate, it's very similar to one of the slides that Isaiah spoke to, just simply coming out of college, getting your first job offer, you're making tons of money because it's simply more than what you had, which was zero. But yeah, just buying a bunch of things that I don't need simply. The earlier that you start investing, the more money you'll have in the long run. Just going back to that compound interest slide that Isaiah was speaking on. So the quicker that you can start saving, the more money you'll have for retirement, the more money you'll have for investing. Do not get a job and think that just because you're making, $50K or whatever your first job is out of school, that you have a lot of money. There's always more money to be made and you want to spend it wisely. So understand the difference between needs and wants. And yeah, that would just simply be my advice. What about you, Isaiah?
Yeah, so that's a really good one. I always say it's the like investing without understanding. Like I can't tell you how many people I know that like jumped into like these random cryptocurrencies and like lost it all, right? So I would say have an understanding of what it is that you're doing with your money, and trust but verify. Like do your own research before you do anything, or be comfortable with the consequences. So that's fine. I see somebody with their hand raised.
Yeah, I was about to say, Adegun Olusola. Did I get that right?
Yeah. I'm outside right now, so maybe a little bit hard to hear me.
You got the last question. Go ahead.
I was wondering what your opinion was on retirement, because I've heard a lot of things in regards to, that's a bird in the background. I've heard a lot of things in regards to like retirement being something that's very difficult to achieve, and especially being comfortable while in retirement. I just want to know what your opinion on that was.
Yeah. So Adegun, why when you're reading that, why are they saying that it's difficult to achieve?
It's been a while since I read that, so I don't completely remember. But it did revolve around like a lot of the times, especially if you have a job, you're either laid off, you're either like fired, or it's like something else happens. But I'm not too sure specifically in regards to retirement.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so retirement looks different for tons of people, and I think it'll look different for this new generation, right? So historically, everybody's viewed retirement based off of like social security and benefits and things like that, right? So you say, hey, I'm going to work till I'm 65 or 67 and a half, and then I'll be able to, do whatever I want. That's probably not the way that people today are looking at, right? So I have a plan with my fiance and I've worked it out with my financial advisor to understand what I need to do to retire at 45. What if I want to retire at 50? What if I want to retire at 35, right? So I have those goals in mind to say, okay, what is that achievable and what do I need to do, right? So again, what I would say is a lot of people historically weren't financially literate, or didn't understand or have a plan in place to think about how they wanted to retire, how they wanted to live their life after retirement, and what they needed to do in order to get ready for that stage of life, right? So I think by taking these steps that we've identified here and talked about all today, this last hour, right, of just increasing your financial literacy, understanding your money, like investing early and often and for the long term, there's no reason you should face that concern of when you're going to retire and whether you'll be able to comfortably. So that's my take on it.
And
Okay, thank you.
That is all we have today. So everyone join me. Let's give a round of applause to Davina and Isaiah for their support. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Excellent advice. Again, I don't know if they mentioned it, but we always say a good way to stay in contact with some good resources is to make sure that you network with them on what? LinkedIn. So if you don't have a LinkedIn account, be sure to reach out to them both on LinkedIn. I'd like to thank them and also our major board donor, General Electric, in case you all didn't know what that stood for, or GE. And on that note, I will see you all next week. I dropped the survey once again, the survey link inside. Be sure to complete this survey to give us feedback, including if you have some suggestions for additional content or for speakers that you would like to see. Next week is the final workshop for our August series to kind of get you ready for school and getting you set up for the career fair, virtual career fair, which is required and mandatory on the 16th. And it's a special guest. Most of you always have a lot of questions about NACME Scholarship. Well, we're going to have our president and CEO, Michelle Zama, to do the last presentation. And she's going to pretty much talk about how to prepare best for the virtual career fair next month, as well as she'll probably go into a lot of orientation questions that you may have about your scholarship, whether it's corporate scholars or your traditional block grant scholarship, and anything else that you have regarding requirements and obligations to NACME. So we can kind of create a partnership, including a preview on what the new scholarship program is going to look like next year and some new events that we've got coming up in the spring. So on that note, thank you very much on behalf of NACME. Thank you for attending and participating in Case Academy. We will see you next week at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone. Thanks again. Take care. Bye-bye. Get that survey done.
Thank you. Take care.
Have a good one.